r/askreddit. Siblings of narcissists, psychopaths or sociopaths, what's your experience? My brother was diagnosed with NPD at 16. He's never had empathy. Children learn empathy at some point, but it was like he never reached that developmental stage. He was unconcerned when people got hurt. He hit and bullied others in school to get what he wanted. Doctors, therapists, medication. Nothing made a difference, and it's not like there was some kind of trauma or a reason for his behavior. It's like he was just born wrong. When he was 10 he started taking and dealing drugs. As a drug runner for some older teens, you can't be prosecuted under 14 in Germany. My parents called our version of CPS for help. He got more therapy, some inpatient stays and his own social worker. He stole my dad's car when he was 12 and got picked up by the cops. He got his first charges at 14, drugs and assault. My parents were at their wits' end and agreed to have him placed in a group home for troubled teens for a year. He was kicked out shortly before the year was up. He came home and seemed to recognize in a clinical, detached kind of way that he couldn't go on like this without ending up in prison. He was about 15. He started being less violent, but he had insane delusions of grandeur and needed everyone to comply with whatever he wanted. If they didn't, he lashed out. My parents still made him go to therapy. He assaulted my dad and choked him because he didn't want to. My brother was 16, but also 6'3" and about 190 pounds. My dad died from a sudden aneurysm when he was 16, and he went off the rails completely. He got a girl pregnant and she was kicked out by her mom. My mom took her in. The girl was not a bad person, just had some issues, so it wasn't that surprising that she'd date my brother, who could be charming if his situation demanded it. He beat her up at our house a couple months later while she was still pregnant. That was the last straw for my mom. She kicked my brother out. We helped the girl to find an apartment for her and the baby. And surprisingly, my mom caved a short while later and let my brother move back in. He seemed to think he was the head of the household. My parents never married, so my father's modest possessions went to me and my brother instead of my mom, and that included the car my dad bought a year before he died. It was the first brand new car he ever bought, a small one, but he was proud of it. My brother made my mom sell it so he could get his half of the money. It wasn't even a fucking expensive one, and my mom was devastated to lose my dead dad's little car. I was 20 then, my brother was 17. He was verbally abusive and basically tortured my mom mentally. He threatened to hit me on a daily basis whenever I didn't do something or give him something he wanted. He also threatened to kill me a couple of times. On a particular bad day he told my mom that he'd have no trouble to get a couple guys to run her off the road when she went out. When the threats got stale, he beat me up every couple weeks. There was one particular instance where I was actually afraid he was going to kill me. He did his usual spiel of using me as a verbal punching bag because he had had a bad day, and I was just burnt out. Didn't even react anymore. He hit me a couple of times and choked me. No idea how, but I fought him off, grabbed my phone and ran to the bathroom where I locked myself in before he could get to me again. He was trying to beat down the door while I called the cops. The cops did nothing. Told me he lived there, so we'd have to get along, and since we both said opposing things, nothing would come of it. I insisted they take my fucking statement. My mom wasn't home at the time, but she was a wreck anyway and couldn't deal anymore. A couple days later, my aunt came to visit for a couple of days. My brother was his charming, manipulative self for her. My aunt tried to pressure me into not pressing charges, since apparently I gave myself the dozens of bruises and contusions I had, as my brother had told her. I was severely suicidal at that point and gave my mom an ultimatum, me or him. She kicked him out again. He came back a year later, and I moved out for college immediately. I don't blame my mom much anymore, rock and a hard place and all that, but she never could understand the fact that her love for her son was misplaced. He didn't have the things that made someone human. He had no empathy. He was not capable of love. He was just an empty shell that went through life trying to get whatever pleasures he so desired by whatever means necessary. I haven't spoken to or seen him in about 7 years, but my mom's still in contact with him. He went to Spain when the mother of his daughter tried to get child support. Sometimes, my mom still talks about the things he's done. A couple examples. For some reason, his ex-girlfriend started letting him see his daughter, and she flies to Spain with my mom once or twice a year. Or used to, anyway. He locked her in the basement with an adult-sized portion of food she threw up on because she couldn't eat anymore. She was 4, hard to remember, or so. She doesn't want to go visit him anymore. He withheld rent from his Spanish landlord for like 6 months. The landlord had terminal cancer and my brother saw it as a waste to give money to a dying man. He married a girl in Spain and had another kid, and he now makes a living as a realtor. From what I've heard, he still thinks he is God's gift to mankind. I don't think I'd even go to his funeral if he died. I can't even imagine your pain. That's such an unfortunate situation. It's interesting really. My mom died recently. When I called my sister to come down the day before she died, she said I thought she was going to die today. I'm not disappointed, but I can't keep missing work. The next day I called her to come to the hospital again as the doctor and I made the decision to take her off the ventilator. On the phone she said, well, can we pull out the tube as soon as I get there because I have plans tonight. She also proceeded to ask me for rent money that day, as I also live with her. The things they say, and don't realize how messed up it is really baffling. My condolences. The sooner you can put distance between yourself and them, the better. My half-sister was 19 years old when I was born, flipped her shit and told our mom that she was too old to be having kids and that she should put me up for adoption. That started our relationship, where she was vocal about not liking me. When our mom got terminal cancer and she made me medical proxy, because I was the only kid at home and was already a caretaker, half-sister protested and said it should be her because she's eldest. She managed to make things about her and not our mom who was fighting fucking stage 4 cancer. When I gave the order, as per mom's verbal and written wishes, to disconnect life support, half-sis said I killed mom to inherit shit that was already mine. Haven't spoken to her in a decade and I plan on keeping it that way. My sister has never been diagnosed with narcissism or a personality disorder other than OCD, but when we were younger she often enjoyed telling people before I met them that I had a difficult relationship with the truth so that they wouldn't want to be around me. I had the reputation of a liar and no friends for most of my preteen years, and she was popular in our homeschool group until she left and got into high school. After she left, I still didn't have friends, but neither did she, and she blamed me for it during her frequent temper tantrums. She would throw things, scream, cry, and threaten me with kitchen knives on a pretty regular basis. All of a sudden, the year that I turned 17 and she turned 21, the tantrums stopped and she got engaged. He moved in with us, the tantrums started again, and for once I wasn't the target. The worst fight they had happened when she caught him looking at a photo of a bikini model, which she considered cheating. She hit him full force with an open palm, and when our mum saw, she threatened to kick her out if she hit him again. They got married, moved out, and divorced within a year of him enlisting in the army. He had to get away, somewhere with less violence. My daughter was hit by a drunk driver when she was 12 and nearly died. She was in a coma for 2 weeks and I was there all day every day, except to go home to shower and change. My sister decided that when I was at the hospital was the perfect time for her and her druggy girlfriend to jimmy the sliding door off the track, break in and steal everything she could find, jewelry, my camera, and yes, my daughter's piggy bank. The bitch stole the piggy bank from a comatose kid. I'm so sorry. I hope that your daughter is doing better now and that your terrible sister has left you all alone. When she threw a cup of hot tea at my face because I refused to show her something on the computer. Or the time when she yelled at me for over an hour because I was really sick and had thrown up all over the bathroom sink. The same bathroom she had just cleaned. I stopped speaking with her over 7 years ago. My sister did something similar. She pulled extremely hot refried beans out of the microwave, a big bowl, and poured it on me. I was probably 6 and she was 10. I got massive burns from that. Another time we were arguing over who was going to ride our shared bike and she got so mad she shoved the handlebar in my face and it knocked my 2 front teeth. I had to get metal caps over top of them and was so embarrassed. My brother was one of those grandiose narcissists. A typical example of his everyday behavior was the time he purchased a can of an uncommon brand of cola and then bragged for days about it as though he had discovered a cure for cancer or something, all because it wasn't Pepsi or Coke. Those were for common people. My mom would hang on his every word. She pretty much lived vicariously through him, and he could do no wrong in her eyes. He could act like a jerk towards me and she would make excuses for him, no matter how awful it was. However, once when he didn't like the birthday gift I have him, she acted like I had committed a crime. Our parents were really against drugs. However, when my brother decided to grow marijuana in our house, our mom was enthusiastically supportive of it. However, a few years later when I smoked pot and my parents found out, well, suddenly I was the one who ruined Christmas for the family. My brother was living 3,000 kilometers away when she became gravely ill. I phoned him and told him he needed to get out here pronto if he wanted to say goodbye. The best he could manage was to come out a week later. She hung on for that week waiting for him to show up. When I would visit her at the hospital and say, "I'm here mom," she would respond with, "I want your brother." She instructed the hospital staff to not tell me anything, so when I would ask how she was doing I would get a "that's private confidential information" type of response. Meanwhile, my brother would phone the hospital daily and they would tell him everything about her care, from the medications she was on, her blood work levels, her treatment options. It was pretty much palliative by that point, and all that. I could not even get her "she slept well last night" from the nurses, but he could tell me her blood oxygen levels from 3,000 kilometers away. Every day that I talked to him I would ask him if could not come out sooner. But he could never get away from work, even though he was one of the highest ranking people at his job. I took care of the house while she was in the hospital. I cleaned up all the diarrhea, did her laundry, took care of the bills, but wasn't a welcome visitor to her bedside. When he finally did show up, he visited her for a short while, then said, "Let's go for lunch" to me. She passed away as soon as we stepped out of the hospital. She hung on just to hear him say hello. Golden child syndrome. Your mom was the main problem. Your brother was the byproduct. Your mom sounds shitty as well. How could she devalue you so much? Brother believes the world is his oyster and that friends and family and loved ones are his to control and exploit. He told a girl they are dating and she should buy him a car and take him out for dinner. Brother has also tried to burn down our childhood home thrice because mom didn't give him the things he wanted. We were poor and he knew that, but he honestly believes that he gets what he wants because that's how it should be. He also tried to sell my car. He still hounds me for the money he should have gotten if he sold it. Lived an entire lifetime not being aware that it isn't normal to run to your bedroom and hide when dad gets home. That it isn't normal to be scared of your parents' reactions to, well, anything. Becoming a mom and having little kids that I just looked at and knew. I could never beat them up for picking a flower, or shame them for not knowing how to hang a shelf, or throw grubs at them if they come outside, or throw potato salad at them if they say they don't want any. Yeah. It wasn't normal, and only just now am I realizing all of that. They can make drama out of any situation and will try to drag you into it even years later. Example, I am the next to youngest. My whole family is a shit show, but when I was planning my wedding, I was still trying to pretend I had a reasonable family. My future husband's family was like, leave it to Beaver. So I asked both of my sisters to be bridesmaids. I knew this was a risk, but I hoped they could keep their shit together for a single evening. At the time, I thought they had. About 8 years later, we were in the same city because one of our brothers was in the hospital due to a bad car accident. We had one hotel room across the street from the hospital so people could go rest when they needed to. I was in that room with my oldest sister when she said, "You know, middle sister, stole wine glasses from your wedding, right?" I told her I didn't care. A couple of hours later, I was in that room with my middle sister. She said, "You know, older sister, stole glasses from your wedding, right?" I also told her I didn't care. So here we are, waiting to see if our brother was going to die, and both of these bitches are playing reindeer games with me, trying to make me be angry with the other one. Our brother lived. I've cut contact with all my siblings because they are all like this. They have to start shit no matter what the situation or consequences. My older sister and I used to physically fight and such when my family was here. Then I lived with her and my brother in a duplex for school. I had to clean up everything. If I told her to clean her own stuff up, she would yell at me and follow me around if I wanted to get away from her. She had thrown all of my stuff that she could get her hands on outside in the backyard, which is the main entrance for the place. My clothes, electronics, glasses, etc. Some broken and ripped, all because my boyfriend and I had left for class after she asked me for a ride with us 5 minutes before I had to leave. Boyfriend had a car, I didn't. She would constantly monopolize the car my mom left for all of us to share, so I would have to take the bus or ask friend's boyfriend to take me to the grocery store to buy groceries. Throughout our childhood and in our teenage years, she'd tell stories that were pretty convincing, but when talking to someone else involved, nothing like that happened. She knew I liked one of her friends and then proceeded to have sex with him the following week. She'd always get my mom to shell out cash for her, and she'd spend it on drugs. The final thing is when she would not leave me alone since she thought that I had her boyfriend's clothes. I didn't. When I was trying to do homework in my room, she wouldn't leave my room, so I had to leave or try to drag her out. My brother tried to help, but he gave up and just played some games in his room. I had gotten her out of my room and locked the door so she wouldn't get in, but she kept pounding the door and screaming at the top of her lungs for hours. It was so stressful. She then threatened that she will beat me up and plunge a knife through my chest once she got the door open. Then she acted as if she was the victim when I called my parents and let them hear what she was saying. I got super stressed and wanted her to stop, so I opened the door and quickly punched her in the face, then closed the door again. It was quiet for a minute, but then the threat came in again, more pounding on the door. Also, when my friend came to pick me up since I was at my wit's ends, she tried to make my friend think I was the person who started the argument, said that I broke her bracelet. It broke when she kept pounding on the door. I just grabbed important documents, my school stuff, and clothes and left for 1-2 months. My parents were saying that it was equally my fault for what happened. IDK how. Funny thing is that she left the place once I came back, and my parents blamed me for it and kept telling me off. They did not do that to my older sister when I was out of the house for months. They told me I broke the family, and that a few years down I will be laughing about the whole incident. Haven't laughed about it. I don't talk to my sister, and she has tried speaking to me, but I don't want her in my life anymore. My parents give me shit about it, saying that we should make up and be a family again, but I get panic anxiety attacks at even the thought of my older sister. I've had constant nightmares for a solid 3-4 months of my older sister coming to my place and just beating me up, making me do drugs with her. She puts a needle in me mainly, stabbing me, chasing me and threatening me. I still get very anxious when I think I see her somewhere. We live in the same city. Last I heard she was still going to the same college. I'm not sure now though. It's always difficult to share my problems with them because they also had that same problem at some stage of their life, and it was much harder for them than that is for me apparently. Brother was doted on as a child because he was gifted at basketball. Literally had no consequences growing up and could do whatever he wanted. Treated me and our parents like absolute crap, and they still doted on him, while I would get the belt for the most benign and asinine stuff. My brother's life is absolute crap right now. He has no sense of self-worth and just gets handouts from my parents. He is in his late 30s and my parents are giving him money for rent and food. He wants everyone to feel sorry for him and expects everything to be handed to him. He can't do anything on his own and guilt trips and manipulates my parents into doing whatever it is he needs doing for him or just giving him extra funds. He has no incentive to change and is content playing video games all day while my parents just enable his lifestyle. At holidays he just talks down to me and tries to make me feel bad about how difficult his life is. I could care less about him and have no desire to talk to him until he makes some serious changes in his lifestyle and life choices.